This is our Thursday, June 26th, 2025, regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen's meeting. If we could please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's almost like one of those songs where, one group starts and another group starts the same thing. Okay. So we have our chairman on the line. He would like to move up items 6A or 9A and 9B, and that would become 6C and 6D, unless anyone has any questions or issues.
By me?
Okay, Claudia?
Okay.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so that we will do. Our next item is our public comment. Do we have anyone for public comment?
Nothing online.
Anyone in the audience? Boy, everybody's happy. Wow. Okay, our next would be our good to know and special recognition. And
Yeah, I thought Claudia and I could just take a minute and talk about the highly successful Juneteenth event over the past weekend. It was incredibly well attended, probably one of the best attended I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Centralized in one location down at St. Peter's. I thought it was a wonderful celebration. There was a dedication as well. I don't know if you want to speak further about that. I got there for the poetry part because I love poetry, which was incredibly powerful. But congratulations to Code and St. Peter's for another successful event. And
Yeah. So this event just continues to get better and better every year. The organization, the involvement of not only people that live in Hebron, but the members of Code and its membership towns. We had officials there from the state of Connecticut. Kathy Osteen showed up. We had the commissioner of the Martin Luther King Day Celebration Committee there, as well as notable poets and gospel singers and storytellers. It was just an amazing day of reflection and celebration, and also to really highlight the incredible, connection that the town of Hebron has with African American history in New England. And to top it off, the Congregation of St. Peter's with Code, which is a coalition for diversity and equity, created a memorial, if you will, that if you click on it with your smartphone on the QR code that's in the stone, it actually pulls up a whole bunch of stories of the history of notable African American residents of Hebron. An amazing amount of work went into that. I would probably say John Barron and Kevin Tulamari had a lot to do with that. But it's preserving the history, right? So it will never hear when people, obviously we all will come and go, but this will remain. So again, shout out to everybody there. I was super proud to be a member of this town, and also a member of the congregation of love. And I'm sure you were very proud too.
Oh,
you were there in spirit.
I would, yeah, we don't even want to know what I've been doing all these last weekends. Moving relatives.
Oh, okay. Good times. Thank you, Tiffany, for allowing this to be included in the good to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay. And our next thing would be our appointments and resignations. And we have a Board of Selectmen appointment. And I'll read the motion and then we can open it up for discussion. Move that the Hebron Board of Selectmen appoint Sean Fitzgerald to the Board of Selectmen for a term to run until November 2027. With that, I'll open it up for questions or comments. Sean is in the audience.
Does Sean want to say a few words, or are you good, or do you want to come up and speak?
I don't have too much to say.
It's your choice. We always
on the side of things at the moment, so I'll have to answer any questions, but I didn't have any prepared now.
Okay. Hearing no other questions or comments, Claudia?
Sure. I will read the proposed motion. Move that the Hebron Board of
We already read
Selectmen.
it.
Oh, sorry.
Are you calling
Just
for a vote?
Calling for the vote.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
I have my vote aye.
Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Keith?
Keith Pettit, aye.
And Dan Larson, aye. So congratulations. And actually, our town clerk is here, so she can actually do the.
Step out with them and do that if you want.
Okay, well, sure.
Whichever.
Do it right here. Do it in front of the camera. That way.
You want a picture?
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to faithfully perform your duties as a member of the Hebron Board of Selectmen and to abide by the code of the town of Hebron to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I do.
You just give.
Never hear signature, I always think of Cheech and Chong. You know, you must sign the paper. I actually got a bunch of them on 8-track. And you used to be able to get them converted over, and I don't know if that's even possible.
Okay.
Come on up.
Congratulations.
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 Thank you. I'm but
I
terrified.
did take a picture.
Oh, yeah.
Scott, I did take a picture of you getting sworn in if you want it.
My wife will actually want
I'll send it over.
it. She wanted to be here, but my daughters were being chauffeured about the town.
Okay.
So this is all set. Just gonna click on and ready. It should be.
Okay.
Okay.
Wonderful. Ooh. Okay. Our next position would be the Director of Administrative Services appointment. And again, I'll read the proposed motion. Move that in accordance with the Town Charter, Section 801, the Hebron Board of Selectmen confirms the town manager's appointment of Dory Ann Wolf as Director of Administrative Services effective August 16th, 2025. And again, I'll open it up for questions, comments.
If I could, I know there were some questions that had been forwarded along to the town manager's office, and we were in the process of getting those answered. And thank you, Andy, for some of that information that you've been passing along. I know Sean hasn't quite yet been set up on everything, so he hasn't been privy to any of that extra information. I do think that we all support Dory and want to see her brought on. But I think in the interest of getting Sean up to speed and getting those outstanding questions answered, if we could table this until the July meeting, then we should be able to get everything resolved and be able to move forward with all 5 selectmen and select women, voting hopefully in the affirmative for this going forward.
I would respectfully like to try to get this rolling so that she could get her feet wet in her new position, although she is doing a lot of the functions even now and has been for a number of years as an assist.
I agree with the chairman. I think that this would probably be the best course of action right now, given that there were a flurry of questions, given that there are some concerns with the transparency of the process that I personally had. So I would agree with the chairman that tabling at this time so Sean can come on board and he can see that information, and then we can all kind of move this forward on July 10th. I mean, Donna's not leaving until August. And so I think we're still well within a decent amount of time to help her get up to speed.
Okay. I would be interested in knowing, though, where people are seeing that there was not transparency, as this position, like so many others from not only this town manager, but from every town manager that I've been active under and worked with as fire department. Ever since we started a town manager, this has been the same process. So I just don't understand why all of a sudden there's our issues.
So I also have a couple of questions, Dan, as I'm new to the Board of Selectmen. It's my second year in the position. Truthfully, I don't know the process as far as the hiring goes. I know, of course, it isn't in purview to make final decisions on hires for the town. I would say this particular position, in my opinion, the Director of Administrative Services, is a very special position, works very closely with the Board of Selectmen. And I would like to have a discussion of how we could possibly change the process a little bit, have a little bit more transparency as to how these committees are appointed, who gets appointed, who makes the decisions, and about the interview process itself as well. So that's questions that I have too. And also secondarily, I will like to say with the addition of our newest Board of Selectmen member, it's a little bit of a rush for me. I feel uncomfortable with him being part of the board and not being brought up to speed on this particular very important hire. Me personally, I think Dory's an amazing person.
Yeah.
I had the questions of her qualifications, resume, experience. That is without doubt. I have no doubts about it. What my questions or concerns are is about the process. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Well, it's following the charter.
I would just like to ask about, how it's done. I mean, I guess we can read the charter and see what it says. I mean, these appointments of committees and hiring committees, is that also in the charter?
Because this was a question, I reached out to the town attorney and I have a response. So I didn't know if we were going to get it or not. That doesn't change whether you want to vote tonight or not, but there's a clear response from the town attorney regarding the hiring process.
And I just read it. At your request, I am writing to outline the provisions of the Hebron Charter regarding the hiring of municipal employees. As town manager, council form of government, I'll bet the council is named Board of Selectmen. The town manager is vested with the authority of a chief executive who governs the day-to-day operations of municipal government. The Board of Selectmen and the town meeting both exercise different legislative roles, as well as certain other specified powers as set forth in the charter. Under this form of municipal government, the town manager has exclusive appointment power regarding the filling of municipal hiring vacancies. While the Board of Selectmen has no authority regarding the selection of candidates, it does have the power to confirm and can reject a town manager appointee. It is entirely your prerogative as to what information you provide to the Board of Selectmen regarding any of your appointees. And it is the board's prerogative as to whether to confirm based on the information you provide, such as an oral presentation at a meeting or written report. If the board fails to confirm an appointee, then you would again be the sole decision maker regarding the next appointment, subject to the confirmation powers of the board. Specifically, these powers arise from the following provisions of the charter, and that's section 601 general, which I can read, and we can forward copies of this to everybody, I guess.
Yeah,
So-
that
so-
just came in.
What he wrote in the letter, the town attorney says that we have the authority to confirm or deny an appointment, correct?
Right.
Based on information. But if we're not given information, how can I feel confident be affirming or denying an appointment when I don't
Okay.
know? I don't know what I don't know. And that's what I feel.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's best for us, because I also agree with Claudia's comments that, this is a very special position that works very closely with the Board of Selectmen. And I personally would like to see 100% unanimous vote for Dory. And I think she deserves that. But if we're not at a point where we feel that we have the information to do that, then I would like to take the time to get that information and make everyone feel comfortable so that we can have that full unanimous vote going forward. So that's why I would kind of like to just take a little step back, make sure everybody gets the information and feels comfortable. And then, because the great thing about this being an internal candidate is we're not losing any time on, training or any of that kind of crossover that could be happening. We're just getting to a point where everyone feels comfortable and everyone can move forward as a unanimous decision, which is what I would like to see for Dory, because I think that, someone in that position, especially Dory, I would like to see a unanimous vote for her.
I agree. I agree
Okay,
with
so it sounds like we're going to table it until our next meeting, which would be
July 10th.
July 10th?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Oh, no. We have item 9A,
That's right. Yep.
which would be the EDC incentive program proposal. Okay, and I don't know, you did get a chance.
I did see, I
Okay.
did.
So, I don't know, you want to, Tiffany, you want to read the,
I was pulling up the, thank you. Okay. Okay. Be it resolved by the Hebron Board of Selectmen that the Hebron Economic Development Incentive Program application received from Wensco LLC for proposed improvements at 280 Church Street be approved for a period of 10 years and in the amount of 50% relief from the assessment on the improved site, commencing the first full fiscal year following the issuance of a certificate of occupancy by the Hebron building official.
thank you.
I was pulling up all the stuff.
And now we'll open it up for comment.
So if I may, I looked
Yes.
over the proposal from the Economic Development Committee, and they had proposed a 50% reduction for a length of 10 years. I know that in the past we have done, this incentive program for other, tax payers that we felt it would benefit their business and benefit the town of Hebron in the long run for their business to be in Hebron. So we have granted these in the past. However, the ones that, at least during my time in office, that we have granted have been of a much shorter term. I think that, putting a 10-year tax abatement out there is really pushing into future Board of Selectmen's and kind of, setting a precedent that they're going to have to live by. So I would like to see us possibly reduce that to 5 years and then adjust the amounts to make it more amenable to the equine clinic, because they've been a taxpayer in town for several years. Prior to that, they've been in the area supporting other Hebron businesses and Hebron taxpayers. So I definitely want to see them get an economic benefit to stay in the town. So based off of my analysis of a 10-year return, trying to get as close to the abatement number that they're looking for, my proposal would be a 5-year graduated abatement. The first 3 years would be full abatement or zero tax. And then the remaining 2 years of that 5-year term would be at 50%. So it would be full abatement, full abatement, full abatement, half and half. And then they would be back to full tax roll.
And I'll go last.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I would tend to agree. A 10-year abatement would be pretty historic for the town. I think there's larger businesses that do not even get 10 years. So I am comfortable with the chairman's breakdown of that. I think that that's fair, and I think I would be willing to support that.
I just had one question before I comment is, in the event that this business would be sold in that 5-year abatement period, what happens to that abatement? Does it transfer over to the new owner or does it expire?
That's a good question.
The agreement has to be renewed.
So it would have to be renewed with the new owner, right? And they would stay on the same timeline.
It could, subject to the selectmen's agreement.
It would basically be a new app. So like it would be an application for renewal.
So my next question is, on a national level, I've seen a lot of private equity firms getting into the veterinary business. Multi-million-dollar private equity firms buying up small businesses across the nation, and being able to monetize on that. Personally, I would feel uncomfortable should probably unlikely that something like that happen in our town, where a private equity firm comes in, buys up a business, and is able to take a tax break from a small town like ours. I feel uncomfortable with that part. Just wanted to see where we were at on that. So,
Well, I mean, I can't speak on behalf of the owners, but the Economic Development Commission definitely asked that question, had that conversation. And that was part of the reason for the endorsement, was the intent that this remain local, locally owned and operated, this small business, which coincidentally is comparable to even veterinary hospital.
Right.
We're lucky to have both.
Right.
That is the intent. Things change, but in the event they do change,
Right.
So does the terms of the tax payment.
So if they change ownership, then the new owners would have to come back before the
The
board.
tax abatement agreement is made with
This one
Let's
entity.
Go
Mhm.
LLC.
They would have to come.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any questions on like this?
Not on the modified, no.
Okay. And I actually also agree with a 5-year maximum. I think that's what we did with Colebrook, and I believe that's worked out well. We did it with the Flower Girl thing here in the center of town. And I totally agree with Keith. Going out 10 years is just too long. But this here will give them virtually the same dollar amount over a 5-year period, and actually would help to benefit them in years 0 through 3, in my estimation.
Yeah, it'll give them slightly less. They'll make over 5 years what they would have made over 8, but by getting it on an accelerated scale, the return on investment that they'll get will actually put them, depending on their investment rate or their interest rate, will put them very close, if not ahead of where they would have been on a 10-year scale.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Sure.
How many employees does this new business intend on having?
Oh, this is Wendy and Scott Sears. They're the owners.
hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I don't know if you are comfortable with them speaking from this.
Sure.
range.
Go for it.
Right now, we employ 3 full-time veterinarians, 5
Two full-time office staff.
2 full-time technicians, 2 part-time, and 3 or 4 part-time technicians, kind of depends on time of year, and plan on hiring a full-time veterinarian.
Which would also necessitate an additional
Technician, vehicle, equipment.
And how about any support staff? Besides the vets and the technicians? Receptionists
Yeah,
or?
we have 2 full-time office staff,
Mhm.
and our office manager, or part-timers that have been fill the odd hours.
Okay, then moving forward, I'll turn it over to smart people. And if
do you want
this
me to-
is acceptable, what we are proposing to you, does this need to go back to EDC? What's the next
Right.
step of the process?
No, you can do it.
I think we would just do
Yeah.
a friendly amendment to our motion, because the original that I read was 10 years. So wouldn't we just do a friendly amendment?
Yeah, so for the EDC perspective, for our part, it's just a recommendation, right? So the final vote comes from the board of selectmen anyway, so there's no reason to have to go back to EDC unless we're renegotiating.
Well,
We don't have to
I'm not
renegotiate
sure
because
what,
they're here and they're on board, so.
Okay.
There's no reason, unless you need us to go back to
No.
do something, we're here, we're
okay, works for me.
So I'll do, if the board
Sure.
would like, I can do the friendly
Please.
amendment to the original motion.
Mhm.
I'll just read it over again.
With the
Do
new
it that way.
numbers.
All right, be it resolved by the Hebron Board of Selectmen that the Hebron Economic Development Incentive Program application received from Wensco LLC for proposed improvements at 280 Church Street be approved for a period of 5 years as follows. Year 1, 100%. Year 2, 100%. Year 3, 100%. Year 4, 50%. Year 5, 50% relief from the assessment of the improved site commencing the first full fiscal year following the issuance of a certificate of occupancy by the Hebron building official. Did I do that right?
Good. I think you did extremely good.
There you go. Awesome.
Okay, so hearing the amended motion, all those in favor?
Claudia Riley, aye.
Tiffany Teely, aye.
John Fitzgerald, aye.
Keith?
Keith Pettit, aye.
And Dan Larson, aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And good luck with everything, actually. Okay, next would be item 9B, the Green Committee DEEP SMM grant.
We have Paul Forrest, Public Works Director, here to speak quickly on that subject. The Green Committee, for personal reasons, couldn't make it last minute.
He's still online.
I think so.
So,
From the company.
Yeah, Waste Zero's here.
Yeah.
Ori, is that?
Yeah, she's
Yep.
still on?
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, yes, I'm here as well.
Hi.
Did you want me to talk about it or?
Sure,
Yeah,
please.
well, Mike Carter, he's on the Greens Committee and, he can't make it tonight. He was heading up this, Green Committee, this Waste Zero project. So, and then Lindsay also was part of it, heading it up also. She couldn't make, she fell ill. So basically what it is, it's a grant, no cost to town, that get food recycling brought in. So you can recycle your food and essentially save money on your dumping fees. Corey, do you want to give a quick, talk about it?
Sure, yep. So by the way, I'm Tori McBride Drunken. I work with Waste Zero. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So we are a consultant for CT Deep, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. This is the second round of sustainable materials management funding. So the first round, we worked with 15 communities in Connecticut. 8 of them piloted programs for food scrap collection and unit-based pricing, and 8 of them moved forward into permanent programs from their pilots. This round is a little bit different. There were some lessons learned, some improved things, but the overall structure is the same. Deep funds, unit-based pricing and food scrap collection programs because they reduce the waste really regularly, really well. You may have heard there's a waste crisis. Tipping fees are going up. We're sending trash out of state. Landfills, incinerators are closing. So DEEP has a big incentive to give grants to towns who are interested in reducing their waste. And this round, they're especially interested in funding transfer stations. So we are working with a number of towns in your area. Marlborough, Colchester, East Haddam are all interested, as well as 10 others throughout the Connecticut for SMM round 2. The way that this grant is structured is in phases. So the first round of funding, as Paul said, there's no upfront commitment from the town. The first phase you will is just exploratory. So you get some funding to work with the technical consultant. Technical consultant will kind of go through your waste tonnages, say, here's, some places that you could improve, here's some ways you can save money. If you're interested to move forward, you can accept further funds to actually implement and get some money for some food scrap collection, which we're interested with Colchester and Marlborough as well, because you can get some economies of scale for hauling out food scraps and get some good prices. If you don't want to move to phase 2, you don't have to. So that's what's really advantageous about this grant this round, where Mike Carter was especially interested. He said, you guys may have future things on your docket for your transfer station, but this one does have a way out. There's no obligation to move forward. So phase 1 funding, you just go through the process, and then there's no pressure to move to phase 2. But if you design something that you really like, you think it's going to work really well, there are additional funds that you can then accept to actually implement and try something out. So this grant application is due tomorrow. Hebron is our down to the wire community. Everyone else has submitted already. But the town manager, the Green Committee, and Paul really wanted you guys to be clued in on what's happening before the grant is submitted. I think that they intend on applying, from what I understand. Obviously, I can't speak for anyone else, but it was my understanding that they have intention of applying. And so wanted to give you guys a heads up about what's coming. If you end up receiving the funds, DEEP should announce that in about 3 months. Then we would come back to talk to you more about what it would mean to actually accept those funds. So if there's any questions about what the grant is for or the process, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So if we apply for the grant, we are still not obligated at this point to go further, correct?
Yeah, that's right. So you apply for the grant. If you receive funds, you don't have to accept them. And then if you go into phase one and you explore the program and go through a process to go through a transfer station analysis, there's still even a second point at that point where you don't even have to move forward after that point. Everything is blocked in stages so that no one feels pressured to move forward when they're not ready to, as well as DEEP doesn't have to give funding to a town that's not actually interested in doing something the full way. So it is this, the operational stops along the way is a double layer of protection for both the town and DEEP.
I'll let you guys. I got questions.
I mean, my first question is, if the grant's due tomorrow, why are we hearing about it tonight?
We've been hashing out on the Greens Committee, and we have a lot of failed meetings due to lack of forums.
I'll jump in. So the reason you're here for tonight is the Green Committee asked us, even though the deadline to apply with no obligation is tomorrow. I was hesitant myself, but try to show support for the Green Committee. That's what they wanted to do. Mike, fortunately, Mike can't be here. So I said, it's up to the selectmen. We'll bring it in, but you're kind of rushing. But with no obligation, I said we'd float it. So either way it goes, Paul and I are just.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, but I think in the future, committees need to get us this information a lot sooner. I mean, to have to make a decision tonight when the grant is due tomorrow, that's a little much to ask the Board of Selectmen. Beyond that, I just have a logistical question before I'll defer to my colleagues. Is establishing pay-as-you-throw setup, what exactly is that? So is the goal of the program to charge people more for bringing in food? Is that the purpose of the program?
That's what I got out of the program, yes. And initially, it'll be, the grant will cover the cost, but eventually when it goes away, it all depends on how the residents are going to the transfer station, how it is. It may be, you have to probably buy a special bag to throw the.
Like a compost program like they have in the city of Boston, where you've got to pay to throw, okay.
Yeah.
So that would be an additional fee for people who want to participate.
Correct.
Okay, I'll defer to everybody else. Thank you.
You know, if I could, I had several questions about the UBP because it was my understanding reading the attached documentation that first off, it was not just whatever you want to do, that it is mandatory for people to be charged for bags for municipal household waste, not just for composting. And also, it kind of, I feel like we're being given some funky numbers here that don't exactly add up. You're saying that a municipality shows a household waste reduction of 40 to 50%. And from my numbers, based off of the number of trash bags that I produce a week of household waste, and having to buy the orange or yellow bags that those go in, which is another piece of plastic that I then have to throw into the normal dumpster for household waste, that dollar amount breaks out quarterly to about what pickup service would be. So I don't actually think that there's a reduction in household waste town-wide. I think there's a reduction in household waste that's being brought to the transfer station. But I think more people, such as myself, just find it economically beneficial to switch over to curbside pickup for basically the same price as paying for these bags, and I don't have to drive to the transfer station. So economically, I don't see this benefiting the town. I saw some provisions in there for audits. I don't know how residents would feel about being stopped at the transfer station and having their garbage looked at as part of an audit. So I don't know. I'm really hesitant on this program. I think that there's a lot of questions that I would want answered. So if you could give some more information on how UVP works and how you got that 40 to 50%, whether you actually saw a reduction in waste being delivered to Casella, or whether you just saw a reduction in waste at the transfer station, I would really like to hear those answers.
Sure. So my apologies. I'm doing this on my phone and I cut out for a little bit, but rejoined, and I think I got the gist. One, I would say the waste audits are optional, and we wouldn't necessarily be stopping people. that's aside. Unit-based pricing is extremely popular in New England, with almost half of Massachusetts communities doing it, as well as it's a state mandate in Vermont. Maine is looking at making it a state mandate, and it's also really popular in New Hampshire as well. So we have actually about 500 examples of unit-based pricing programs, and in every single one of them, they reduce trash from between 30 to 50% with an average of 44%. So that is transfer stations, that's curbside programs where people don't have an option to move to a separate hauler. So there are a wide range of examples of situations, and in every single one of them, they reduce trash between 30 and 50%. So those numbers come from a huge database. It's actually really not a new concept. It's been around since the 90s. With Stonington, Connecticut is an example of a curbside program where people don't have to they don't have the option of going to somewhere else to do it. Their transfer station in town and their curbside both use pay as you throw, and they have an average of 50% less waste than every other Connecticut town that doesn't have unit-based pricing. So it's really a very well-established concept, and that's why DEEP is funding it. And just to lead it back into the grant, the reason that the grant is structured the way it is with phases and options to go out is because as effective as it is and as proven as it is as a program, there's no denying that it is hard to wrap your head around and can be a political obstacle. So the phases are meant to just allow towns the space to explore it. So we're not asking you to commit to something even tonight. You can submit the application and then take a few months to actually go through this stuff and start to understand it. And then should you accept funds, there's another phase built into it that's just simply about trying to understand these numbers. And if you have questions about the data, we can go through it and we can take the time to do that. Because anything that's rushed through, as you guys fully understand, makes it harder, and it makes people confused about why all of a sudden they have to bag their trash separately. So there needs to be some time for the public to catch up, for everyone involved to really go through it themselves and understand it. And that is 100% what this grant is about taking the time and dedicating the resources to fully vet it. So just that's phase one. And then should you fully vet it and you stand at the transfer station, you have conversations with people and you find out what their daily life is like, what their concerns are. And then you find out actually this is not going to work for Hebron, people are just not ready. Then you don't move to phase two. If you find out, like in Guilford, Connecticut just implemented, and they actually found they were a little different. Guilford had a weight-based system where they were paying $9 per every 100 pounds. So when they switched the bags, people loved it. People were really excited about it, and they got their 39% waste reduction. And it was really popular in town. So if you go through phase one and you have these conversations and you find out that people actually might like it, then guess what? You have a second round of funding. You have some funding to back it up behind it to actually give something a try and get something that you want funded that's going to help your transfer station. So this is not at all saying you have to do unit-based pricing. That would be crazy for me to come into one meeting and say, you're going to make this huge change overnight. I'm just letting you know about the funding opportunity and the regional collaboration. I think another reason we're really excited about Hebron is because Colchester and Marlborough have submitted their applications, and the potential for community partnership is really impactful when you're talking about waste management. Regional solutions can go a long way in terms of environmental benefits and cost benefits. So we would love it if you guys would submit your application, take some time to think about it, and it could be something really great for not just Hebron, but for the towns around you as well.
Sean?
Thank you.
Just a quick question, because I actually grew up in Coventry in the late 90s. They did try this, and they've since backed back out. They did have town pickup that you had to pay for the bags. And it might have reduced waste, but they did find that the public really backlashed against it. At the time in the 90s, it was $1 a bag. So, I mean, have you seen any other towns backing out of this program?
Yeah, like I said, sorry. So I don't have my camera on. I was born in 1995, so I wasn't there in Coventry when this happened and can't speak to it. Very sorry, but I did come on with Waste Zero 4 years ago, and so of those 15 communities, I told you 8 of them went forward. You can do the math. That means 7 of them did not. Some of them just, it happened where that's exactly right. Like sometimes people just can't get on board with the change. And that's totally fair. And again, part of this backing out process of it is a big change. And right now, it may not make economic sense in every single town. However, tip fees are going up. So right now, your tipping fee, forgive me, I wrote so many applications, but I believe yours is somewhere around 115. That's the state average, $115 per ton. In California right now, they're almost in the 300s. Like Seattle, Washington, California are about double, and that's where Connecticut is heading. So if we don't reduce the trash, if we keep sending waste out of state, eventually that is a cost that you will have to look at in your tax base. You're currently funding your trash payment in the general taxes. And so if those tip fees go up skyrocketing as they're expected to do, especially around the next time you sign your contract with your haulers and your disposal sites, you may have to make some decisions about how do we pay for that. And oftentimes that is the time that towns say, okay, well, pay as you throw is now the best option. So sometimes it happens with towns where they don't want to make that decision until they get to that point. And other times towns want to get ahead of it. So by switching to something, the advantage of switching to something like unit-based pricing is that you are building a layer of resilience towards whatever may happen in 2, 5, 10 years with the rising cost of tip fees.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
This is for the individual on the line. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. If we didn't go forward with this particular grant proposal, when is the next time the window opens up for it?
So the last round of SMM funding was 2021. This time it's 2025. So I don't really know what is the next time. They're not talking about a third round just at this moment. It's not a recurring grant. Every time they announce it, it's a little bit different. So we don't really know.
Okay.
Paul, can I just hear from you? I'm just curious. Sorry. I just want to hear from you what you think. I mean, you're our expert on the ground. What do you think? I mean, you know how I feel about the timing of it, but
I was a little hesitant at first,
okay.
That's how I was because we have a lot of big projects going on, a new facility.
Yeah.
And so that's my feeling right now. I'm hesitant on starting something new right now.
Okay, because and that's something else I think the board has to think about. We've got a new DPW going there, and so
Hopefully.
yes, if that's the plan. But it's helpful to hear your perspective.
I know the Greens Committee, they've been at it since before I became.
Oh, I know, and they're great, but it's helpful to hear your perspective on what you think moving forward.
I have a number of questions. One of the things that I did not see is what the cost of the bags were going to be. And it talked about a number of free bags. It doesn't state how many of the bags are going to be free so people get used to this. So those are the first two questions.
So I will say the cost of the bag would be something that you would decide as the Board of Selectmen, or in the grant we have it written out that you would task a committee to go through something like that, because it does take some time to vet all your options. The cost of the bag can range anywhere from 30 cents to $2, where I'll give the Guilford example again, they are covering the cost of the tipping fee, as well as they're covering some of their operational costs. So they have some of the highest bag prices around. I think they're at $1.50 for a small and $3 for a large. They could be much lower than that. We typically recommend that you price the bag in line with the tip fee so that it's really, really fair. It's truly people are paying for what they throw. They're not paying for what they throw and some operational costs, but that would be up for you to decide. You could do it however you want. And that's something that you would go through a long conversation about in phase one, and you would look at your budget and say, what do you want to cover with this fee? We don't recommend that you price it arbitrarily, although there's plenty of examples in other places where people do just say, hey, it's $1, hey, it's $2, and then whatever the revenue comes out to be is what it is. We would take you through an analysis and make sure that you understood exactly why you're setting that price and also what those funds are designated for. And that's something that would happen in phase one. The funding, exactly what you're talking about, that there is some funding for some free bags would be, okay, so we got through phase one, we settled on a price that makes sense for our budget and it makes sense for what we feel the town will accept. Like you're talking about in Coventry, if the bag price is too high, it's really going to bother people and it's going to affect them. So you have to be cognizant of that. So once you come to the end of phase one and you say, this is what it would realistically be for us, and this is what we think is making sense, if you say, okay, we're ready to do it, we're ready to hit go, then you would accept more funding from DEEP, and that would pay for the quote. I think it's really vague, as you probably picked up on. It's like a number of free bags. So let's say you wanted to give everyone in town a year's supply, then they would get, 1 or 2 or 3 bags per week times 52, whatever that is. And then you would give them away, and DEEP would pay for that as part of the grant. And that would just be like a helpful thing for your residents to get them started. And that's, again, why doing this with the grant makes sense. If you're looking at unit-based pricing 5 years from now, when you have to, because you're looking at really high tip fees, this funding for free bags might not be there. It's here now. So we're saying go through the process in phase one, take a look at it. If you want to move forward, there's some extra money at the end of it to help make it easy for everyone. If you don't want to move forward with it, then don't. And hey, actually now you also have a plan, like you've gone through this process and come up with what it could be. So should you decide in 5 years that you want to do it, you have this thing to refer back to, and you've been through this exercise, and then you can do it again when you are ready.
In the communities where they had these amazing reductions in trash, has anybody done a study to figure out where that trash went? Was it just not generated, or was it quote unquote buried in the backyard?
Yes, a lot of people have studied it. So what's cool about it is that you do see recycling go up a lot. So, a lot of it is moving from the waste stream into the recycling bin, which is what you would want. Finally, all these people who maybe kind of recycle, and they kind of do it when they can, now they really have an incentive to do it correctly and to learn what goes into the correct bin. And they're factoring, every single piece of cardboard. They're not being lazy about it. They're putting in the recycling bin. They're taking donatable goods to Goodwill, because now all of a sudden it's worth it to drive across town to donate it rather than just drop it in the bin in the trash can. And some of it, they say, is source reduction. I read a study recently about the increase in illegal dumping along with unit-based pricing, and they say that I think about 1 in 5 towns experienced an uptick in illegal dumping with the addition of unit-based pricing, but that it goes back down within 6 months. People have this initial reaction where maybe they do want to throw it in the backyard, and then they get over it. You can't keep that up, right? That's a not good thing to be doing. People just eventually get on board with it.
And then another question I have, you're talking about cardboard and all this. I was under the impression that China is no longer taking cardboard and certain paper products. Where's all this recycling materials going, and who's actually doing the recycling? Since it seems like a lot of the vendors of yesteryear no longer want the recyclables.
Yeah, the recycling markets for paper and cardboard specifically have been pretty stagnant in the U.S., in our area of the U.S. for since about 2017. They haven't really gone up or down in terms of pricing. So we are also lucky enough to live in a state that has a recycling materials facility that does the sorting. So our recycling rates, I think, are pretty good. Like, we're not experiencing, when you read these national news articles, they might be not quite local. And here in Connecticut, we have good recyclers. And so I think pretty much what you send to the recycling facility does get recycled.
Like a $40 difference from shipping fees to recycling fees.
How would we like to proceed? I think, are we at that point where we're going to figure out how we want to move forward?
Part of me, well, let's discuss it. Part of me is saying to at least apply for the grant if we do not have to take it. And that's the big key. I don't want to apply for something and get locked into something.
Mm-hmm.
But because we don't really have a lot of time to really study it, get into the real minutia of it. And I also think that something this major, we need to get our taxpayers kind of either on board or something. We need their input.
I think even just based on all the questions we had tonight, and I know it's not your fault, Paul, but to give the Board of Selectmen one night to decide, frankly, is unacceptable moving forward from other committees in town. I mean, we could have reached out to other towns, which Claudia had mentioned, with like we could have done some more research in advance of having to proceed. So depending on the flavor of my colleagues, I'm happy to move forward and apply for it because it sounds like we don't have to take it if we don't want to move forward. But I do it reluctantly based on the timing of it.
Yeah, and if I could jump in, the only reason it's here is I support the Green Committee. I gave them the same concerns, and I said, we never do this. They don't like to rush into anything, but the deadline is that date. Mike pushed us, and I said, I'll float it. So however it goes, it goes.
I am not against recycling. I am not
No,
against
that's what it's about.
conserving, but we have a tax base. Our taxpayers need to weigh in on this. I think this is something that is going to literally be historic for the town. And I think that we need more input. So I would say, yeah, we could apply for the grant, but I want to make sure, and I again reiterate, I don't want to be locked into it if we were to get it.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to weigh in? What are your thoughts on moving forward with a vote on the motion?
Yeah, I think, I've heard a lot of good input. I mean, I was originally, like I said, I had my doubts, and I still would like to see the data because, again, maybe it is going into the recycling stream. And if so, the data will show that. But, 40 to 50% reduction is kind of, that's one of those miracle things. You're like, what is going on? I do kind of understand where, Public Works is coming from too. I mean, how are we expected to be successful in this when, if things go well with that project, a year from now, when we are transitioning from phase 1 into phase 2 or halfway through phase 1 or whatever we want to call ourselves at that point, we are moving from the current transfer site to maybe a temporary transfer site or something else. I mean, that was an idea that was thrown around. I don't necessarily know that we're definitely going to do that, but we talked about safety at the DPW site. Having the public be going through there is, counterproductive. So I understand that this is being thrown at us with kind of like a zero strings scenario, but the fact of the matter is that I see us coming out 3 or 4 years from now being successful as a very slim chance. And we're going to be taking away possibly grant funds from another town that might be able to be more successful. So I don't necessarily know that I want to waste Deep's money when it could be used better in Bethel or in Norfolk. Maybe they would be successful. I don't see us having a great chance of being successful given our scenario right now.
Well, the question would be, do we apply for the grant, but then when the funds, if we are successful, are offered to us, hopefully by then we would have more definitive answers, or do we want to just say at this point in time, not interested?
If I may, that 3-month schedule does put it within a couple weeks of voting day. So, I mean, I'm sure the paperwork could be pushed until, if the thought was put it to a general vote, that gives time before we accept the funds for the taxpayers to have their say. If it's even something that's desired.
I think if our DPW director is a little hesitant to move forward, I think we should take that opinion seriously.
Agree.
As much as I love the Green Committee and I absolutely agree with Tori, I mean, recycling and waste is an issue in this country. It's going to continue to be a broader issue. But I don't like things thrown on me at the last minute when we could have had a lot of time to discuss this. And I think that I trust the Director of Public Works, and if he's hesitant, then I think we should honor that.
So we have a resolution. If we decline the resolution, then that would put this to bed.
Right.
So, I will read the or actually, who read the, did I read it?
But nobody read the resolution,
Oh.
so you can go ahead.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry.
Sean can read his first resolution.
Woohoo.
It's an honor. Be it resolved that the Hebron Board of Selectmen approve the grant application to the State of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection Sustainable Materials Management Program and authorize Andrew Day Tierney, Town Manager, to sign any necessary grant application documents.
Okay, upon hearing the resolution, all in favor signify by saying aye, opposed nay. Claudia?
Claudia Riley, no.
Tiffany?
Tiffany Teely reluctantly no.
Sean?
Sean Fitzgerald, no.
Keith?
Keith Pettit, no.
Dale Larson, no. Motion has failed. Okay, I believe,
I apologize, but we're going to be headed out to dinner and fireworks, so I will let the rest of the board take over for the rest of the evening. Good luck.
Goodbye,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
enjoy the rest of your time.
Stay on the call and film the fireworks.
That brings us to 7, the town support.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Our manager's report?
Okay, so we're currently still in union negotiations with the Public Works Department. We still have 3 more possible dates that we have to meet. We met today. I went to an FOI hearing this week with the Friends of the Douglas Library. That's continuing. Unfortunately, the IT equipment at the state failed, so we had to cancel halfway through. And
I thought that was why it cut out, because I was listening.
it cut out twice. Actually
Yeah.
fixed it and then it
Mhm.
cut out again. And then
Okay.
it took a certain amount of time where she called it, but I'll be going back up there. Unfortunately, he doesn't want to let that go. We're in dire need or dire straits for senior bus drivers. If anybody knows anybody that's looking for a possible job, we'll get it.
No, that is CDL bus.
Sort of, yeah.
You need a CDL.
Yes.
You're asking your endorsement.
Okay.
Air brake or any of that, or was it hydraulic?
Mhm.
Okay.
Standard.
Yeah.
And that job posting is on the town website?
Did we post it down?
It should be.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah.
I'll check.
Do you do driver training for CDL? For that? So they have to come with it.
Yeah.
And
As you want to be a passenger anyway. No.
it's been in the back. As you can see, Paul and I have met with Mike Carter from the Green Committee. They're struggling to get quorum again tonight. Unfortunately, they couldn't have quorum, but in good faith, he wanted to put this on the agenda. I apologize for this last minute. I know you don't like it, but I just wanted to show that we were at least trying to support something they felt passionate about. So thank you for entertaining that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we met with the CCDC, the pilot for affordable housing project. The Board of Selectmen should be seeing something soon, right, Matt? Not tonight, but maybe possibly the next meeting, we might be in front of the Board of Selectmen with Father Ron and his gang.
Yes.
Okay,
However, I think there's some work to do before then, but yep.
so we're working on that as well. That's,
Before that.
and that's all I had.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, then we go into number 8, old business. We have first one is the American, actually, there's no need for discussion on that one. You didn't have any updates or anything on that. ARPA?
Projects are moving
They're just
along.
moving along.
Okay.
I can get you a more of an update for the next meeting if you want.
That's fine. I see the fence is up for the
Everything's underway.
pickleball.
They're gonna
And
strike the pickleball courts. They're scheduling drilling the well. And we got the fence guy lined up for the dog park. We got the parking lot done at pickleball.
yeah, I saw
We
that.
did it in-house with free materials, so we're trying.
Perfect. Thank you. Next would be the Department of Public Works Action Committee update.
I don't have anything for that.
Richard Steiner's on the line.
Oh, okay,
He's literally
Oh.
right here.
there you go.
I'm assuming Richard would like to speak about the DPW, correct?
Perfect.
Good evening. For the record, Richard Steiner, 330 West Street, and a member of the Department of Public Works Action Committee. Actually, tomorrow, Silver Petroselli and a cadre of their subconsultants are going to be meeting with Paul Forrest and his personnel to take a real slow, in-depth evaluation of the entire site. That will lead into, I won't go into a lot of details, but during the month of July, a lot of on-site in-depth investigation, geotechnical, environmental. While that's all going on, Silver Petroselli and their team will take back information and start to begin to put together schematics. So we're well underway in the schematic process. Or we're in the beginning phases.
Right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Thank you.
Next would be the Charter Revision Commission final report.
So it's in your packet. That's the correspondence from the Charter Revision Commission providing their response to the selectmen's recommendations and also an updated red line version of revisions. The selectmen should now work to finalize proposed charter revisions and determine how to present to the voters at the November election. The report will be sent to the town attorney for review. The CRC plans to attend the July 10th, 2025 Board of Selectmen meeting to respond to any questions, at which time the Board of Selectmen should plan to finalize the proposed revisions.
So if I'm hearing that correctly, we don't need to decide on a final night if
Not
the
tonight.
Charter Revision Commission's coming. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
Read that whole thing.
Yeah, I did too.
You'll see
It's good work.
the language.
Yeah,
The council versus selectmen
yeah, it's good work.
language.
Okay, next would be the Horton Property and Hebron Community Master Planning.
Matt, would you want to come up for that?
Yeah, sure. If I join you guys?
Come on, come on. Thank you, Matt. So Tiffany had requested that we put this on the agenda to start talking about the Horton property and the master plan. And I know, Matt, you had sent the latest version of what we've had, and I think
Actually, really quickly, Andy, is that the latest version? Because there's a presentation from 2021 that has a master plan. So what you sent me looks like the 2018, 2019 version.
That's correct. I was going to address that. The only modification is the Colebrook has been accommodated
Okay,
in the newer master plan.
okay,
I did not have a good digital copy of it. so
okay. But this that we presented on August 21st, this is the master plan we're working with.
I wasn't, so this year, August 21st, you're saying?
This was on the DPW website as a previous presentation from 2021. So I guess my larger,
2021.
yeah,
Okay.
so I guess my concern is if we're working off of a master plan, it needs to be the most updated current version. And I'm concerned with the versions I've seen not aligning.
Yeah, so we have the master plan. The way the master plan is revised, the way it is revised, the process is that it is a proposal would be made and it'd be reviewed and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Mm-hmm.
So that requires a petition, an application essentially, and then actions are taken. So that becomes official. Those actions are recorded and everything like that. So we have a file that represents the most recent, most relevant approved master plan in a file. I just don't have a digital copy, so I'm going to share with you.
Okay, I want to see it. So somehow I need to get a copy of that. And I think I think the issue I'm having with the Horton plan itself is there's so many different versions rolling around here. We need the actual version that is approved as of like right in this moment, because there have been iterations, right? We put a DPW facility like right in the middle of the property. Now that's coming out. So what's going in there instead? I think clarity and transparency are important. So I just want to see the one master plan that you and planning and zoning are working on right now. And that helps address all these versions that are going around that aren't aligning with what I'm even seeing on the DPW website.
Yeah.
Because there's a 2021 presentation with a different version than what you sent me.
So, I mean, that's good, and we should have everything up there. It should be all consistent. I agree with you, and I will take it upon myself to identify any discrepancies.
Wonderful.
I think the public works facility concept, if I understand correctly, was not an approved amendment to the master plan, so
Okay.
it's not going to be incorporated in the plan. However, the master plan is a master concept plan.
Mm-hmm.
It is, it is an idea, and it is fluid, and it is dictated by a process outlined in the Planning and Zoning Commission or the Hebron zoning regulations. And I think generally speaking, there's recognition that the current iteration is dated.
Mm-hmm.
The Planning and Zoning Commission can take it upon themselves and has expressed an interest, although it's going to be an undertaking, to update it. Consider some revisions that would be appropriate for the town. There's some, acknowledgement that what's currently depicted is unlikely to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
There's also recognition that there are needs that are likely to rise or perhaps potentially become more of a priority for the town that may be relevant to whatever we do with a revision.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there will be a fair amount of changes coming.
Okay.
Let's say there's been a lot of things going on, and so the pressure I haven't felt necessarily is a top priority to amend this plan right now. It is on a short list of the things to do with the Planning and Zoning Commission, but we know we have a couple of issues we have to resolve first. Number one is the water issue, right? So it's going to be hard for me to work with the commission to consider what the community might like when we don't know what the capacity we have to work with. It's like we could come up with some great ideas, but only to realize that we could not actually realize any of those. So there's some work to do. There's some proactive moves I think we can make, and I'd like to kind of start to outline those for the commission.
I have a follow-up question though. When we presented the Horton purchase to people at town meeting, there was a PowerPoint that was shared with a master plan proposed that had a great lawn, that had all these other types of things. And when I look at what you sent me, it looks very different from that. And so my question, and the question I get from constituents is, what are we doing with the property? What's changed from that PowerPoint document that led people to vote for the purchase of the Horton property? Why is nothing happening? And where is the most updated version for the public to view? So I appreciate it's not our purview per se, and I'm very respectful of purview. But when I get these questions and I don't have an answer, and there's 3 different versions of a PowerPoint, I have a problem with that. So I think we all want to see the most updated version, not the one from 2021, the one that we're working toward now. Because I get a lot of questions about what's going on with the Great Lawn. I have no idea. I have no idea what's happening with that. So that's where I'm at with that. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions?
When people submit requests for changing a use of property or designating a property for a different use or concept, how does that information get conveyed to other boards? I'm saying, something major, not just, I want to, this was, in fact, I saw a couple of them where they're talking about maybe going from commercial to residential, or, a little change like in the Toomey property, where there was a certain number of commercial structures and then, residential. Now it looks like they're trying to cut back on the commercial since it's not renting.
Right. So the Village Square District is the only zoning district that requires a master concept plan, and then that master concept plan be revised if what's being proposed is inconsistent with the way it's reflected on the master plan.
Yeah.
So otherwise, you have a generally understood zoning districts, which have a set of permitted uses and a process for, developing in accordance with those regulations. So when you brought up the example of the Toomey Crossing project, that is in the Village Green District, or the Hebron Green District.
Right.
Hebron Green District. It is a village district, which is a statutory language, but that's applicable to its historic nature. In that case, we have the way we were able to, or potentially able to, accommodate a change where there's a transition from a mixed-use development concept to a more explicitly residential concept, requires a zoning regulation amendment.
Okay.
So that is a planning and zoning commission process. It requires an application. Sometimes it could be the public makes the application. Can also be the planning and zoning commission can amend their regulations themselves. Requires that we advertise for a public hearing, hold that public hearing, and close it, and then the commission takes an action. So that's how that process works. An amendment to the master plan would not be too dissimilar to a zone change, but that's not typical, for other zoning districts.
Okay. One of my concerns is that both planning and zoning and us have got very important responsibilities, and yet it seems like there's a disconnect between what that board does and what we do. We don't always see what's going on the other side of the fence, and I don't know how to make that, well, I hate to use word transparent, but more transparent, or more,
I just think it's
knowledge sharing.
Communication, right?
Yeah, and I don't know how to best do that.
And I wouldn't just limit it to just you guys in the Planning and Zoning Commission. I mean, it appears that, you've had more business recently with the Economic Development Commission. It's good to start sharing that information, had that vision statement exercise, kind of going back and forth there a little bit, share ideas. Highly recommend that. There's more opportunities for the boards to kind of work across tables. But
I'm just I'm just not sure that our mission aligns with their mission all the time.
Well, and I think, look, I think two things can be true, right? I think that the DPW is obviously our larger concern. We want to get that construction going, knock on wood. We want to have a safe place for employees to work, and that has been a priority. However, I can't help but point out, we just purchased the Horton property and it's just sitting there. And to me, those issues are going to start to become in concert with each other, because so when we purchased that land, it was for a purpose. And if that purchase is changing, I'm totally open to that. But there's just I'm not sure I see a vision for that property, because again, there's multiple versions of plans, and
there's also desires out there, which
Sure.
I personally don't feel are realistic. Myself, but I would just like to somehow find a way of having some sort of better communication. I think, at least on the major, as I say, I hate saying nickel dime changes,
but
when all of a sudden someone comes forth and says, I want to do X, Y, Z, and it's going to, radically change a concept or a plan of a district, somehow we kind of sort of need to know. And I think for the most part, we do find out, but yeah.
The reality is we've been trying to build a public works facility for 15, now it's going on 16 years and we still stalled. We are actively having it looked at and designed at the 550 Old Colchester Road site. There's no guarantee once that's done and the cost comes up that that's going to pass at a referendum.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to use the word held hostage, but you really can't. You got to figure out what we're going to do and get it. The next big project's a DPW project. I mean, you've got letters from the building committee, multiple letters saying it's unsafe, you need to do something. And we're trying to do that. And let's hope we can come up with some sort of scenario that fits both the venue and gets the taxpayer support to move forward on that. Once if that does happen, I think that opens up the door for some other options. I mean, the Great Lawn was a part of that DPW package with the utilities in the access road. So once that we moved away from that all got moved away from. So,
why can't we no longer have a Great Lawn at the DPW there?
I didn't say we can't. I just that was a package with the road, the utilities and stuff going in to develop that. So once that was a part of that. So once that we walked away from that, we have to revisit that and come up with some sort of scenario that was part of that package. The road and the extension of the utilities and the power. Even if the DPW doesn't go there, I'm not saying that can't go there, but that was packaged together at that time.
We don't want to put a Great Lawn in and then all of a sudden have somebody say, oh, we really need to do that there, and then I'll take the Great Lawn out.
No, but I think planning needs to be, I think we need to be nimble and flexible.
Yes.
Right. And I think that it doesn't hurt to have a backup plan.
Yeah.
Just in case. And to have some kind of vision, because I get more questions about people who voted to purchase that property and nothing's happening. And I don't know what to tell them. I think beyond that, I don't want to belabor the point. I want to see I want to see the plan that the commission's working with, because I'm curious and I want to see it. But I mean, beyond that, we can move on to other questions or anything like that. I mean, I just think that we have to be able to do two things at once, unfortunately. I mean, we have to move forward and make sure that we get this building passed and built, because most people need a safe place to work. And I think it's also fair that we could consider other options for that piece of property that this town voted to purchase years ago. I do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your time, your effort.
Thank you, man.
Okay. Next would be
All the way to D. C, Homeland Security. That's right. I forgot a letter.
all of that.
How could I forget all of that? It's unforgettable.
Claudia, you want to, actually, there's a double resolution there.
Let me give her a copy. Here you go.
Yeah.
Right there.
All right. Let's see, be it resolved that the Town of Hebron Board of Selectmen may enter into and deliver to the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, any and all documents which it deems to be necessary or appropriate. And be it further resolved that Andrew J. Tierney, as Town Manager of the Town of Hebron, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the Town of Hebron, and to do and perform all acts and things which he deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents, including but not limited to executing and delivering all agreements and documents contemplated by such documents. This authorization is for the FFY 2024 Homeland Security Grant Program and the Omnibus Memorandum of Agreement.
All right. Oh, here you go. You can have your packet back.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So does anybody have any questions on this? This is one of those things that's actually, even though it's a million pages, pretty uniform and basic. We pretty much do it every year.
Yep. No
Um,
issues.
Any questions, comments?
That answered the question I was going to ask.
Was that?
That actually answered the question I was going to ask.
Oh, okay.
Much like the state police contract of last.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So, okay. Hearing the resolution, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay.
Claudia Riley, aye.
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Sean Fitzgerald, aye.
Myself, Dan Larson, aye. And Keith is no longer with us, so motion carries. And I'm sorry. Next would be
D.
Yep, the Gilead Hill.
Yep.
Um,
School code violations project resolution.
yes. You want to read it?
Sure.
We'll discuss it.
Chapter the first. Be it resolved that the Town of Hebron Board of Selectmen authorizes the Superintendent of the Hebron Board of Education to apply to the Commissioner of the Department of Administrative Services and to accept or reject a grant for the code violation project at Gilead Hill School. Be it further resolved that the Town of Hebron is hereby establishing the building committee with regard to the code violation project at Gilead Hill School. The committee to consist of the following individuals: Mal Leichter, Richard Steiner, Wayne Warwick, and 2 representatives of the Board of Education, Joe Margaitis and Alicia LeMay. Be it further resolved that the Town of Hebron hereby authorizes the preparation of schematic drawings and outline specifications for the code violation project at Gilead Hill School.
Okay. Hearing the resolutions, I'll open it up for questions.
Do you want to see if Richard has anything he'd like to add on this?
Sure, Richard.
Thank you. Again, Richard Steiner, also the chairman of the Gilead Hill re-roofing project. Just a little background of what the code issues are at the Gilead Hill School. Early on, when the architect began to do some exploratory relative to the roof project, a couple of members of the building committee, one of them being myself, accompanied them on their investigation. And two things became pretty obvious. One, above the ceiling, there are a series of penetrations, mechanical, electric, plumbing, sprinkler, and the fire and smoke caulking that is typically done was not really done completely. And rather than waiting for the fire marshal or building official to hear about it, I went to them and showed them pictures. And so they're very much aware of it. They're going to cite the project as a code issue, which we're intending to address next summer. The other thing that we were very much aware of is that the original school was built in 1968. All of the lay-in acoustical tiles contain asbestos-containing material. Now, asbestos, when it's not disturbed, it's fine. But the real problem with the ceiling tiles in the 1968 wing is it prohibits school staff, maintenance staff from going above there, doing any type of repair work to plumbing or mechanical. There has to be special protocols employed. If there's volume dampers that should be adjusted for comfort, that is a limiting factor that really somebody needs to come in and remove the ceiling tiles. There's a certain type of environmental protocol that needs to be undertaken. There were a number of discussions we had with the architect, the building committee, town manager's office, and the resolution was it would make an abundant amount of sense as part of the roofing project next summer was to remove and replace all the tiles that contain asbestos. I mean, as a practical matter, we have to remove some of them for the new drains that need to be installed above the ceiling in a 1968 wing where some of the re-roofing is going to occur. So those are really two of the things that are kind of embedded in the phrase code violations. Between the building official and fire marshal, they're going to issue a letter, and the representative from Chatham is going to issue a letter relative to environmental infringements based on the asbestos-containing tiles. The good news is in the meeting that we had with the state of Connecticut Department of Education, they said if you can solicit these as code violations, the town of Hebron will receive a higher reimbursement for code violations rather than renovation. So, and it was not a reach on the part of the authorities having jurisdiction, building official, fire marshal, health official. They were very clearly, from their vantage point, code issues that need to be addressed. So that is really kind of a lot of detail of what is included in that resolution that the committee is asking you to vote on tonight.
Do we have any kind of an idea on the actual cost and what's the reimbursement rates? And
The reimbursement rate kind of hovers around 53% of the cost. I know the architect did put together a budget for both tasks, and candidly, I don't have that information available right now. I do have it. The members of the committee have it, and it actually was presented. Town manager. So the information is out there. I just don't have it at my fingertips.
We had authorized, I believe, a certain dollar amount for these roof projects.
We did.
So is this going to alter that amount?
No,
Do we have to
no.
go back?
No, what the town has previously approved did include the anticipation that this work would be as part of the roofing project.
Okay.
So the previous authorization did include the anticipation that this work would be approved.
So this resolution just cleans up that bit, or if the money had already been in there, why the new resolutions, maybe?
I think it's so the superintendent can get a grant for the project,
Yeah.
which does require
That.
Yeah. the state requirements. That's all.
One of the things
That's
that
why-
one of the state asked us to do was, for a variety of different reasons, they say, we really are imploring you to break the roof, the fire and smoke caulking issue, and the remediation of the asbestos containing material, ceiling tiles, into 3 separate projects. And they went through, and so, and Mr. Larson, to your point, this resolution kind of is dictated by them, knowing that there's a separate building committee established. There's already a building committee established for the roofing project at Gilead. What has not been established is a building committee to oversee the asbestos ceiling tile remediation project and the fire and smoke caulking remediation project. So to your point, yes, it does clean it up to their requirements.
Perfect. Thank you. Anybody have any other questions? No. Okay. Thank you. All in favor of the proposed resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Claudia Riley, aye.
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Tom Fitzgerald, aye.
Dan Larson, aye. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. And again, thank you, Richard. You've done yeoman's work.
Thank you.
That was before.
Incredible. Thank you. Our next thing would be the bid waiver and award contract for the road resurfacing. Yes, okay.
Right, so the 90 attached is a memo from Paul Forrest, who's here tonight for public restricted requesting a bid waiver for the road resurfacing contract for fiscal years 25, 26, with a proposed motion. I don't know if you want to read the motion and then go into the.
Sure. Move to the Hebron Board of Selectmen in accordance with the Town of Hebron purchasing policies and procedures. Approve a bid waiver and award the contract for road resurfacing for the fiscal year 2025, 2026 to Glasgow Materials.
Yeah, normally we go with the low bid for paving, and Galasso did not get the bid for this district. They got the bid for other districts in the state of Connecticut, and Marlboro is actually the next district. So they're like, hey, we're going to be here X, Y, and Z days. I'm like, well, let me see if I can get a bid waiver, and they're going to give us the state bid pricing in that district also. So, and they're going to be able to come in here as soon as next week.
Okay.
So the memo I sent to Andy, they're gonna be able to come do one of our roads next week that fell hard on us. That failed us during the course of the winter, which is Skinner Lane.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't been down it, don't go down it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to do my 4-wheel drive.
Well, if you want to test your 4-wheel drive, go down it. But so that's what and they're actually part of the paving project was also going to be a senior center. So I asked them to price it together, and they gave us a really low price. It's like 15,000 below the contractor that just priced out that one parking lot. So they put their whole paving project together. They said, you know what, this will work for us, and I'm like, I'm happy with it, you know.
Right.
So they can come in next week, mill Skinner Lane, pave it the following week, then come back the first week of August and do the rest of the projects, which will give us time to prepare them. So
Now, is this the Glasgow up in, I want to say, Windsor?
yeah, up by I say by the airport, that
Okay.
Granby.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
So this will be the first year for them going into Marlboro, and I'm going to Marlboro guys, and they're excited. You know,
Right.
They weren't happy with their last year contractor, so I'm not sure who it was, but
Okay. I'm going to recluse myself. My son-in-law actually is in charge of all their mechanic maintenance.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure it's the same company, but
Yeah.
just to be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just also, they're actually going to be in charge of the milling contractor. Usually I do it separate, but they're actually giving pricing. They actually went out, called a bunch of different companies up. Hey, give us pricing for milling. It's actually lower than the state bid pricing that we would get.
Nice.
So.
Okay.
Great. Good job.
Okay.
Thank you.
So all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Bonnie Riley, aye.
Tiffany Keely, aye.
Tom Fitzgerald, aye.
And as I say, I will recluse. Because
Thank you guys.
Thanks for all your work. We appreciate it.
I don't think he has anything to do with any of the
No, but
bidding or
I'm
any of that
sorry.
stuff,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
I beat them up a little bit on pricing, you know.
yeah. well,
I'm a resident here too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, he's in charge of all the vehicle maintenance, all the diesels and all that. So as I say, he doesn't have.
If a truck breaks down, I'm calling you up. Break down.
He lives right up on, right over in East Hampton,
Hopefully for Skinner Road sake.
White Birch Road.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, next would be the recommendation for the revenue collector for the suspense list.
Yeah.
You want me to read that one?
Sure.
All right. Proposed motion, move that in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 12-165, the Hebron Board of Selectmen approve the suspense list as presented in the total amount of $66,366.26.
Our revenue collectors online, Dan, if you had questions regarding that.
Okay. Hi,
Adrian.
Adrian. Let's see.
Hi, I'm sorry, my video's not working,
Okay,
but
I
can you
see.
hear me?
Okay. Yeah. So
Okay.
I just had a couple of questions. I mean, some of these, one of them is a person who's actually building a house in town. I see her name on the list, and another one's a business in town. So what makes these people, entities, either suspense or uncollectible? I mean, I understand if somebody's passed away.
Yep. So the suspense list it's simply an accounting function, and the taxes are still enforceable and still hold all of the same DMV holds or any other type of enforcement that we have at our disposal. The people that are in town and the businesses, there's not a lot we can do to enforce them. They're not lienable. They're not, like I said, we can't lien them. So they just kind of sit there and they will fall off eventually after 15 years anyway. I kind of got called out by the auditors because this is something that I do need to do on an annual basis. And like I said, it is simply an accounting function. These are older accounts that have not been collected, and we've done all of the enforcement that we can do at our disposal, and we're still not collecting them, so that's why we're adding them to the list. They're only they're business taxes and motor vehicles. Those are the only two types of taxes on the list.
Okay. Oh, okay. So it's not like
There's
real property.
Not at
real
all.
estate.
Real property, we get our money for the most part. There's only very few properties in town that fall off. And they're mostly issues that we have with like contamination where we really can't go after the property. But no, these are only for personal property taxes, which would be business or unregistered motor vehicles or motor vehicle registered taxes.
Okay, now if you don't pay your motor vehicle tax, does not DMV not renew?
No, so I can kind of speak to this really quickly, and then I have a question for Adrian as well. So there was a bill proposed before the legislature this past session that would have withheld motor vehicle licenses from folks who don't pay their motor vehicle taxes. And that didn't make it to the floor for a vote. So as of right now, there's no mechanism at DMV or even at DRS where we would, there's just that didn't go through this. So there was a bill, but it didn't go through.
So yeah, can I speak? I don't want to interrupt
Yep.
anybody. That is correct. However, we can't withhold their license renewal, but it does withhold any new registrations or
Right.
registration renewals. That is in effect. We are required to report any unpaid taxes each year to DMV, and then we're required to remove them as they pay. But that hold does go on, and that hold is still effective. How people get around that, I can't really speak to that. A lot of the motor vehicles, they're no longer around. A lot of those motor vehicles have moved out of state, or people have they're switched to a lease perhaps, or they find other ways to have motor vehicles without paying the taxes.
Adrian, what specifically did the auditors tell you? What do you mean we got pinged by the auditors for
Well,
this?
I did not. We have to do a suspense list every year. We have not done one the last few years. And so that's why this suspense list is probably a little bit heavier than you would see on an annual basis, because we're playing a
Why
little bit of
wasn't it
catch
done?
up.
Yeah, why wasn't
It
it done the
just,
past?
it just has something that I missed and
Okay.
had not done. And then it was pointed out to me this year.
Okay.
So, Adrian, Sean Fitzgerald, I did see multiple years in this suspense list, so this brings us up to current.
Well, it doesn't bring us to current, but I went back to where years that we had previously suspended and then came forward a couple years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. We have to.
Yeah, we have to vote because we read a motion.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll sort of accept the list, I believe.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So, all in favor of approving the list as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Claudia Riley, aye.
Tiffany Teely, aye.
Oh, Gerald, aye.
Dan Larson, aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you.
Okay, next would be our draft agenda for the July 10th,
Mhm.
2025. So again, if anyone wants anything added or carried forth, we will have the appointment. John, if you have anything, any suggestions or whatever, just call it in the town manager's office.
Yeah, not as of now, though.
Okay. The next thing would be any other new business. Okay, we have our consent agenda item. These are items that are considered routine in nature, which the board may or may not wish to discuss individually and may be voted on as a group. Any board member who wishes to discuss a particular item in this section may request the chair to remove it for a later discussion and a separate vote if necessary. We have two items. One would be the approval of the minutes of the May 29th, 2025 special meeting and workshop, and then the June 5th, 2025 regular meeting. So does anybody want anything pulled or anything on that? Okay, so move the Hebron Board of Selectmen approve the following consent agenda items and motions contained therein as if individually adopted. And it would be the approval of the May 29th, 2025 special meeting workshop for the June 5th 2025 regular. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Claudia Riley, aye.
Tiffany Teely, aye.
John, you really weren't there, so you kind of sort of
Wouldn't be a voting member.
wouldn't be a
Right.
voting member.
Recuse myself.
Yeah. there you
Okay,
go.
good
Your
job.
first recusal and your first.
Woohoo!
Well,
And-
there will be a few.
And Dan Larson, aye. Okay,
My first recusal, yes.
and with that, our liaison reports, Tiffany?
Yeah, I don't have anything on AHM. I apologize. The only thing I'll add about the Hebron Board of Education is I know that they're looking for a new business manager and work is continuing there.
Okay.
So that's what I have.
Board of Finance actually met tonight. Keith is not here, and Claudia.
I have nothing to report from Maria.
Okay, that leaves us to public comment again. And I don't know if we have anything.
Nobody online.
Nobody online.
What?
Well,
They left.
they all
They
left.
all left.
Well, then I guess that means if everybody left, we can't do anything except wait for somebody to come back. No, huh? Okay, Tiffany?
All right, move to adjourn the Hebron Board of Selectmen's meeting at 8:41 p.m.
Actually, all the stuff with all the thickness.
Actually, yeah, that was
That-
surprising. Yeah,
Wasn't bad.
yeah, that's not bad. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.